Welcome, Life Sciences, to another exciting life science lesson. What are we looking at today? Well, we're continuing on our journey looking at the human excretory system. And we're looking at this whole concept of excretion, right, where it's a new term, where we get rid of metabolic waste products in our body, right? Things have to be normal, things have to be in balance. And certain things in our body produce these waste products. So in order for our body to work properly, we actually need to get rid of these waste products. And that is why I said we start off looking, it's a very difficult concept that in order to work properly, we produce these waste products, but to work properly, we need to get rid of these waste products. So what are we going to look at today? If you have a look at the mind map behind me, we're going to quickly continue, well, very shortly, just do a little bit of a revision from our last session, just to go over the concept of what our excretory organs are. And then we're going to look at how the kidney functions. And I'm going to be honest with you, this is not an easy concept to understand, and it's not an easy concept to sometimes be able to describe because there's a lot of terms that are new. So it's not going to be like a walk in the park, but you need to be able to listen carefully, to go over it, and if you don't understand it, be able to go over it again and again and again. So as I said to you, we're going to look specifically, right, how the kidney is going to function. But let us do a little bit of revision first. Okay, so before we start with the revision, I always forget about the words. Remember, I'm going to speak biologically, and that means I'm going to use certain terms, and those terms you need to be able to understand. You also need to be able to understand the definition of them, right? It doesn't help us when we talk about things and we use words that we're not quite clear on. Okay, so the terminology, as I say to you all the time, these are the words you need to understand. Listen to me when I talk. How do I use those words? And if you're not sure, go over them a little bit later. Use your books, use your notes, just so that you understand the context in which the terms are used. All right, so let's just a quick revision from what we did, all right, in the previous lessons. First of all, you must understand that excretion, right, have a look here. When we talk about excretion, what are we talking about? It's the removal of waste products. And then we use the term metabolic wastes. Remember, you guys have probably done digestive system and wastes were there, but they weren't, all right, metabolic wastes. The metabolic wastes that we spoke about was water. Now remember, water is sweating. So when we sweat, we get rid of water. That is a metabolic waste, right? From any kind of muscles moving, us doing exercise. Carbon dioxide is a byproduct when we breathe, cellular respiration. And we're going to breathe out carbon dioxide. That is also a metabolic waste. And then the new concept that we looked at was this nitrogenous waste. And nitrogenous wastes were wastes that usually had the element nitrogen, and we have to get rid of those because if we don't, they could be very detrimental to the body. And the three that we looked at were urea, uric acid, and creatinine. Those were the three nitrogenous wastes that we looked at. Then we looked at this whole concept of the human urinary system. Right, urinary, we could also use the word excretion. Okay, that means the same thing. And we looked at this concept of what organs, because that's what a system is, what organs make up this excretory system. Now, when we look at the major organs, we looked at this kidney. The kidneys, the organs where filtering is going to occur. Then we're going to make the substance called urine. So the kidneys are going to make urine, and that's what we're going to look at today. And then the urine goes down these tubes Because we've got two kidneys, we have two tubes, and as you can see, it moves downwards against gravity, and they are called your ureters, right? All of these organs. The urine is then stored in an elastic bladder. Why do I mean elastic bladder? Because it fills with urine. And when it fills with urine, the brain senses this filling, and it senses when it gets really full. And over here, we have a little valve or a little sphincter, and we can control it, and it says, okay, relax, and the urine will then come out of the bladder and go to a tube called the urethra. The ureter and the urethra sound very similar, so don't get confused. We also need to look at blood vessels. Remember what gets filtered. Blood must be filtered. That's the whole concept. That's really important. We need to filter what's in the blood. So what's going to happen is we're going to have things move in and we're going to have things move out. Right, blood comes in and then we're going to have things moved out. Then, very importantly, we looked at the macroscopic. We cut the kidney in half and we have a look at the structure of the kidney. You need to know this diagram. You need to be able to label this diagram. And when we cut the kidney open, we can see that's got some really distinctive features. And one of the distinctive features was this concept over here called, all right, the renal pyramids. Now, these renal pyramids, if we look at them, okay, they look like little, I think they always look like fish, all right? They look like fish fins. They've got these very particular lines in them. And that is going to lead us to today's lesson. Because what is going to happen is when we get to the kidney, and you need to understand this concept before I show you the next picture. Unlike the different organs you've done in the past, like the heart, where the whole heart works, here, the kidney, the whole structure of the kidney doesn't do a work. There are millions of little structures. They are the workers inside the kidney. And let's have a look what they are. These little workers are called nephrons. Very important, right? A nephron. Know that name. And this is basically what we call the microscopic structure. Because they're so tiny, we cannot see them. But have a look at this diagram over here. So what I've done is, the diagram shows this whole concept of what a nephron is. And here it is slightly larger. And now we can see it's got all these long tubes going downwards. And if we put millions of these little tubes together, can you see where we get that characteristic structure, right, that we call the pyramid, the medulla, inside of our kidney? Now, when we look at the inside of the kidney, when we look at the nephron, right, the nephron looks like this. And I see, as soon as you see the picture, right, it's like, oh my word, this is a really complicated structure. Yes, it is. You need to be able to label the structure, and you need to be able to know how it works, how it functions. Right, so we're going to have a look at it in much closer detail. Now, when we look at the nephron, I'm going to draw a very simple one on here at the top. It's made up of a C-shaped, right, capsule at the top, and then it's made of these tubules that go up and down, but it's really, really convoluted. Now, when we have a look at these tubules, what we see is the following. The first thing is called the renal corpuscle. And what the renal corpuscle is the C-shaped, right, part of the nephron. And inside it, we're going to have this very convoluted blood structure. And that is going to be called the glomerulus. And this is very important, guys, because what happens is all the filter, what we want to get out, we've got to get out of the blood into the nephron. Then if we look at the rest of the tubules, what are we going to see? I'm going to go back to the blue. It's tubules. So the first part is where the blood meets the nephron, and then we have all these different tubules that are going to do the work. And they are the following. The first one is right at the top, is called the proximal convoluted tubule. And that's exactly what it is. It's close to the front. Convoluted means twisted, and it's a tube. The second one is the loop of Henle. And the loop of Henle, right, is a long tube where lots of things are going to occur, and we'll look at that a little bit later. After the proximal convoluted tubule is the distal convoluted tubule. And the distal means behind and twisted. Then the very last tubule we look at is called the collecting ducts. Okay, guys, a whole lot of new terminology. When we take a break now, I want you to just go over the structure of the nephron, just familiarize yourself with it, and then we'll be right back.